Hi, I'm Robert Joseph, and in this video we're going to continue our samples testing out the stitches on the Brother sewing machine LX3817. So in the previous video we did stitches 2 through 5, which were the zigzag and the satin stitches, and in this video we're going to sample the straight stitches, which are stitches 6 through 11. So now 11 is kind of a special stitch because it actually is in the left needle position instead of in the center. So a lot of people are used to sewing in the center, like I am, of the presser foot. A lot of the newer machines that are coming out, the regular sewing stitch needle position is in the left. So, but in this case, on this machine, stitches 6 through 10, the needle position is actually in the center, which is in alignment with a little notch here on the presser foot, which I will show you once we get into the sample sewing. So again, now after we get done sewing all of these stitches, we will actually look at the different lengths of the stitches, and we will figure out how many stitches per inch there are in each one of these steps, 6 through 7. Now I do mention in the video, just to let you know, I'm doing this intro after I have done the stitching video, and I do mention that I'm going to measure the width of each stitch, and I actually don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because I don't want any confusion about these stitches and with other sewing machines. As I mentioned before, I think it was in the introduction video that you will hear other sewers say, oh, I always stitch on a number 3 or a number 2, or I like 2.5. And that's actually how a lot of the other higher price machines have their stitches on their machines. Those are the numbers. And so basically what I'm trying to do is give you an idea of which of these stitches, 6 through 10, equals their stitches. Okay, so generally the 2.5 or 3, that means 3mm or 2mm stitch length. But I come from the apparel production environment where stitches per inch is actually more of a better gauge for the weights and quality of fabrics that you're going to be sewing on. So once I get done with doing the tutorial on the 6 through 10 stitches, I actually stop and we actually count how many stitches per inch each one of these numbers are. And then I will leave a link down to more information about that. There is a wonderful company and website called American and Eford, which actually goes into very much detail about stitches per inch, the quality of thread, and the quality of fabrics or thicknesses of fabrics, and the stitches per inch that you need. And I will actually leave that link to their website down in the description. So click for more information and you'll be able to read a little bit more about that. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce this video with the straight stitches 6 through 11, just to give you a little bit more information on that. And now I will shut up and we will actually get into the demo. Okay, so we're ready to do the straight stitches, and I have my fabric already. And then I just want to remind you, from the previous video, we were working on the zigzag and the satin stitches. And at the end of that video, we messed with the tension. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put the tension back to where it was. And I'm just going to tilt the camera up here just really quickly. So we had moved it to 3 to loosen the tension of the top thread so that it wouldn't pucker the fabric. So I'm just going to move that back to the 4 position, which is right about here. It's in alignment with my notch there. And then we need to get ready to do the first straight stitch. So remember, we have a series of straight stitches here, 6 through 10. 11, I'll talk to 11 after we get to 10, because 11 is actually the same as 9. It's just in a different needle position. So we're going to first use 6, and then once we get done with all of these stitches, we're going to do a quick exercise to actually find out what the stitch length of each of these actually is. Okay, so again, we left off at the satin stitches here at 5. So I'm going to click this over to, whoops, I went too far, to 6. So we're in alignment now with that little notch. So let me put this back on the tripod and get everything set up here so you can watch me sew. Okay, that looks pretty good. Make sure that is in focus. All right. Now, I talked about how to start your stitches in the previous video. If you need to be reminded how you're starting your stitches, just quickly, I like to line up the line, and I've drawn these lines with an erasable marker. They come off with the iron. So line that up, and I like to turn the hand wheel down, put the needle down into the fabric, and you can kind of peek under here and make sure that you've got your needle on that. Of course, this only works for the straight stitching. But once I've got that set, I'm going to drop my presser foot, and I'm going to keep a hold on to these threads back here so they don't move when I first sew. I'm going to start with a back stitch, so a couple stitches back stitch, and then go, and then at the end you're also going to back stitch. So I'm probably going to, just for the first one, I'm going to walk you through it, but the others I may speed up. Because they're just basically straight stitches, and we're doing the same thing for each of these lines. We're just actually numbering them 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so I'm going to start here, a couple stitches and back stitch. I got to turn the machine on. That helps. So a couple stitches, back stitch, and then stitch over that. And again, my hands are not putting any pressure on this. They're just lightly on top, and I can just make sure I can guide it. It likes to swing the fabric this way, so I'm kind of moving the fabric as I feel it's trying to get off of that line. Now I'm coming up to the end, so I'm going to get ready with my other hand to do the back stitching as I come up to the end here, and back stitch and go forward. Make sure everything is in the correct position. I got to turn my hand wheel, make sure that the take-up lever is up all the way, and then I can lift the presser foot and remove the fabric and trim it off. So this is our first straight stitch, and let me see if I can focus on that. And those are pretty tiny stitches. Now, we're going to actually count these stitches and then measure the stitches to find out what the millimeter length is, and also how many stitches in an inch. And I will talk to you why that's kind of important. Now, we may not do that individually, but I will do this all of those, and then I'll show you the final product. But this is our stitch line. They're pretty tiny stitches, and we won't be able to count anything until we press this to get rid of the dark lines. That will help much easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other 4 stitch lengths, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I won't be talking you through that because we just did the one, and all of the steps are exactly the same. So I'm just going to, you'll see me switch over to each of the stitch numbers and then do the stitching. All right, so here I go. Okay, so I am done sewing all of my stitching, and I still need to trim this up and press it and then label everything. But as we look at all 5 of these, let me see if I can get this to focus up a little bit better. Okay. As we look at all these, even though I have still the black lines, we can see the differences of the stitch lengths just by looking at them, from very tiny to much larger. So we can see the progression going across here. So now what we need to do is actually press this, and then we'll get to labeling, and we're going to do a little exercise with this just very quickly to explain to you how to identify which stitches would be good for some fabrics. All right? Okay, so here I have the numbers here, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 being the longest stitch, and then 6 was the smallest stitch. And I'm just going to use this tape measure, and I'm just going to arbitrarily mark an inch, where an inch is. And I'm going to use the erasable pen. This comes off with heat because I don't want that in there. You could use the permanent marker if that helps you. But I'm just going to mark here. This is an inch. And now I've got that marked. Now I'm going to count these stitches between these 2 marks. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let me see if I can zoom up. If this will let me zoom up a little bit so you can see in between those marks. And sometimes with too much light when I'm counting here, my eyes double some things. So I'm going to have to look here where I'm counting. Let's start on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. That was 8, right? 9, 10. It's getting stuck here. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. My hair is in my face. 16, 17. Okay, that's what I'm getting. If you counted more, then your eyes may work better or worse than mine. I'm not sure. So I counted 17. So I'm going to say, here, let me see if I can zoom out. So I'm using the permanent marker. So I'm going to write S, P, I, 17. And that's what I counted for that one. Now I'm going to do the same thing through the rest of these, and we'll see what I come up with. So I'm just going to mark each one of these now. So I'm going to speed this up so that you don't get bored with me counting. So you'll see my motions and the writing, but I will speed the rest of this up. Okay, so now that we have everything counted, it goes 6 to 10. So I was actually right about number 8, that it is just between 12 and 14. So this is the stitch number that I would sew most things on. If you're worried about having to rip things out, or you're just going to sew something to test and then rip it out, I would use the 9 or the 9 or the 10. So you can see, so what is the difference here? So there is a little bit between 6 and 7, there's only 2 stitches difference. And then also between 7 and 8, there's only 2 stitches different. There is a few more stitch difference between 8 and 9. So I would use 9 and 10 as more basting stitches. But that's the way it is for right now. So that's number 8 is what I would use for my general sewing of regular seams. Now, if I were working with lightweight fabrics, say I was going to do like a baby hem, a 1/8 inch hem or a 1/16 inch hem for like an evening gown or a scarf hem around the edge, I would probably use a 7 or a 6 because you need that small stitch to actually hold on to that very fine fabric. So that's what I would use. So now let's actually just, I'll show you how I put this in the notebook as I've shown you before. Okay, so before I end this section on the straight stitches, which are numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, I want to address stitch number 11. And let's have a look at that really quick on the dial. So just pulling back here. So this is stitch 11. So if we look at the drawing of it, it actually very closely resembles the length of 9. And so that's why I said 11 was the same as 9, stitch length-wise. So I actually want to find that out. So the only difference between 11 here and all of the other straight stitches, 6 through 10, is the needle position. So notice that all of these here, the needle dot is in the middle, while number 11, the needle dot is over to the left. So if I switch this to 11, and we come over to the needle, and I don't have the fabric in there. In fact, I lost my thread. Let me thread that really quick, and I'll come right back. Okay, we're all threaded up here. And notice that the needle now, if we look straight on, is now over to the side here. Okay, so if we look kind of, when I keep to, this is the little notch that I'm talking about on the foot, which is the center of the foot. And if we just kind of pan up a little bit, we can see that the needle is over to the left of that. Now I'm going to move the needle back to the center. So I'm going to move it back to the 10. And you see that it moved. And now the needle aligns with that little notch here in the center of the foot. So I'm going to move this back over to the 11 spot. And you see it's moved back over to the left. And now I'm actually going to go ahead and sew a line of sewing just like I did before with all the straight stitches. And then we're going to compare it to the other stitches so that I don't have to have a separate sample. All right, so I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod, and we're going to sew the 11, come on, just like we did all of the other stitches. So I'm already here, and I'm going to put that needle down on my line, and I'm just sewing on another scrap piece of fabric, and this isn't going to go into my sample book. Because I'm just going to, whatever it's closest to, I'm just going to say, and that number as well. So I'm going to look under here. It's all lined up. Press her foot down. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning. Sew all the way down my line. Get ready to backstitch, backstitch. Make sure everything in the machine is all lined up before I put up the presser foot, pull it out, okay? And there is our line of stitching. And I'm just going to press this, trim it, and then we'll take it back over to our straight stitches, which we've already numbered and counted. And we're going to do the same with this and then compare it with the other ones that are closest to this. Okay, so we're back here with the stitches because I actually forgot we have one more thing to count. And remember, that's our number 11, and we are going to match it up to one of these stitches. And I said before that I thought that it looked like 9. And if we look close, whoa. If we look close, these stitches look almost exactly the same size, right? So this is a number 9 on the machine and number 11. So these look exactly, almost exactly the same, but we're just going to check that out by marking off an inch. Let's see if I can find the top of the, see there's the top of the stitch. So I'm looking at this inch right here, and then going down to this inch. And then let's count. I'm going to count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and a little bit, 9. There's really 10 stitches there. So it's almost the same. So I'm counting SPI here of 10. But this is, I'm going to actually also write here left position needle. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do that. I wasn't going to put this in with it, but we may as well. So when I, again, put this up to my 1-inch marks, looks like maybe I over did my 1 inch on this one here. Wait, I'm not. There we go. So these stitches look almost exactly the same. This one might be, the left needle position might be just slightly smaller, but it would work at just the same. Okay, so now all of those are done, and we will actually put them in, get them ready to put in a notebook, right? Okay, hi, I'm back. Okay, so we're done with the stitching, the straight stitch exercise. I know that was a little bit, but it's kind of a good idea to have this done. Now, of course, you may just be saying to yourself, why don't you just make notes of what I've done? So your machine, even though it might be the same model, it might be just a little bit different. So you may want to just go ahead and do this just to double check yourself. So now I wasn't going to put this 11 in with my notebook page, but I'm going to do that anyway. So all I need to do, since I've got this already labeled, and what I've got is got my cardstock, and then I've got my sheet protector. All I'm going to do is tape this using just like this. It's going to go right on here. I'm just going to use my invisible tape. This is the matte magic tape. That's what you want, because you can, if you have to, you can actually write on it. So I'm just going to tape this really quick. I probably could have trimmed up those threads at the top. All right, so I've taped it up here, right? And this flips up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip this up, and I'm just going to put the 11 kind of under it and over to the side and tape that on there. Now you could also use painter's tape if you want to. Okay, so that's that. And then underneath is the other one. And then I usually label under here, somewhere around here. These pieces, I think I cut these. I didn't mention the size of these before, but I think it's 10 inches, 10 inches by 7 inches. I think so. I'm not quite sure. But I usually go ahead and label what this is. So I'm just going to call this straight stitches SPI. And again, that stands for stitches per inch. And so that's what I've done here right on the side. I did it, that's upside down, right side up. Doesn't matter. As long as you can read it, that's the important thing. And I'm going to actually, this is for the Brother LX3817. I have a whole bunch of different machines, so I just put that on there so that I know this is for that specific machine. All right, now that that's done, whoa. I'm trying to get this video done so I can get it up. So I'm trying to run fast. So, okay, into the plastic protector, and then which already has the holes for going in the notebook. Okay, so if you are confused, if you just kind of came into this video and you're watching it now, this is a whole series that I've done on the Brother LX3817 because my mind was changed about the machine, so I wanted to kind of bring all the information about it so I could share with you why my mind was changed. It's a very good machine. If you're a college student, if you're a beginner and you're looking for a machine that's under $100, this is the machine I would suggest. People ask me all the time what kind of machine to purchase. $85 at Walmart, you can pick it up on the shelf. I don't advertise. I don't get paid by any of these people. I don't get paid by Walmart or Brother to bring you this information. In fact, the only time I get paid is when you buy one of my sewing patterns, and I make a little bit on the advertising here on YouTube, but not that much. So if you're kind of confused, I keep saying notebook. I actually talk about the notebook at the very beginning. It should be in the first video, the intro and setup video for this machine. So go back to the beginning of this playlist. I'm not sure what I'm calling the playlist. I think it's going to have to be with the name of the machine in there. So just search LX3817 and you should be able to find the videos that I've done with this. Okay, so now that we've done the straight stitch, we're going to move on to the utility stitches. Oh yes, so 12 through 17 should be the next video that you watch. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I do sewing videos pretty regularly now, so if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button to get notified whenever I have a new sewing video up. So again, thank you and be well.